So, I can make this serious or funny, so I'm going to try funny. But I'll tell you where the serious comes from. Back in the 90s, God, I'm an old man. Back in the 90s, when I worked at Motorola, the CEO, then Chris Galvin, tried to shove code reviews, line by line code reviews, any comments on line one kind of stuff down everybody's throat. And I was part of a team of, I think it was about 900 developers. I think half of them threatened. What's that?
I remember that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, you do. So I hired so what happened is I got somehow called in when I was working on a base station controller, basically a diskless Unix station. I got called in to a day-long meeting with a bunch of process guys, and God, I hated that. God, I hated that. And it was an executive VP that called one of his peon VPs, who was the boss of the guy I worked for, and somehow I got tapped on the shoulder. I must have done something wrong. Anyway, I thought I was being real smart, and I said, when the executive asked me, well, what did you think of our plan? And I said, it's not going to work, it's a waste of money. And he said, well, fine, what would you do? And I looked at him, and I kind of half flippantly said, why don't you hire a psychologist to teach us how to communicate? I was kind of talking to him, you know, like, you're not getting it. 2 days later, I got tapped on the shoulder. Dan wants a budget from you by Friday. And I wound up hiring a psychologist, hating it the whole way, going, what did I do to deserve this? And I'm still friends with this guy, and we ran off a program for 2,000 people. And when people wanted me to keep doing, this is way more than 15 minutes, when people wanted me to keep doing process, and I said, get away from me, I just want to code. I switched departments. I wound up working where Sheila worked then at the time. And when people said, wow, dude, those courses were really good, it's helped me with my kids, I got livid. I said, fine, start talking about the system components as if they were people. And guess what? It worked. So that's the big intro to my talk. So what's love got to do with it? Love is actually a real thing. I'm probably 30 years into developing this, and here you go. It's scary. Nobody knows what it's about. Nobody wants to be caught with it. Nobody wants to be caught without it. When people say, geez, give the documents or the code some love, it's like, what does it mean? What am I supposed to do? I have no idea. I have no idea. So, a friend of mine in the 90s wrote a paper which I thought was really important. Bob Reinke and Arthur Baskin and Jay Mittenthal from University of Illinois, God, there's a pattern here, wrote this paper called The Role of Finiteness in the Emergence of Structure, where they looked at what are the forces that favor the evolution of life. From a Turing machine example, and here we go. Structure is a property of a Turing machine. If you look at alphabet size and number of states or number of data points you can hold, you can solve any problem within a certain realm. Problem complexity is not about the solution, and it's not about anything else but the size of the alphabet and the size of the states that you need at the minimum to get something done. So the solution boundaries right at the edge of the dark curve. And if a problem's structured, the problem complexity is different than the problem size. This is what we know as software people. We break things up into modules. And the way this works in the broadest sense is finite resources. We have a bunch of solutions, and something changes, and half of our solutions just went out the window. The ones that are lower in structure don't survive. The ones that are higher in structure are still viable. So, let me fast forward from that to natural selection. Genetically modern man, it's about 100,000 years ago. Civilization, food and everything else, about 20,000 years ago, maybe 30 depending on who you listen to. So getting cities and language is moving up the structure scale. So we got more solutions available. How did this happen? Well, we started throwing. Say again? Oh, I've got this noise coming here. All right. We started throwing spears. We could only get small animals that we could jump on, but man, that woolly mammoth, I'm not getting close to it. I got to hurl a spear at it, but that's too much food. Who else was around for the too much food? It turns out every modern dog is descended from the gray wolf. Mitochondrial DNA shows that. We used to think maybe there's a mixture, maybe it came from other animals, but actually no. When did this happen? When did our relationships with dogs happen? Over 100,000 years ago. About the same time we started throwing spears. Archaeologists, or I'm sorry, that should have said anthropologists, used to think that it was 15,000 years ago that we started having relationships with dogs. That is, interacting with somebody else. Not true. As a matter of fact, there's theories now that say our first language was nonverbal. It was pointing, like throwing the spear. So what happened? Humans cooperate from birth without training now. We're wired this way. Alan Alda's got a nice Human Spark series. It shows this. Dogs take cues from humans. If you look at the Dogs Decoded PBS program, this is a wonderful thing of two cups, one with a treat, and the researcher pointing to the cup with a treat for a chimp. Chimp never takes the hint. No other monkey ever takes the hint. You do so much as look with your eyes, and a dog, even a puppy less than 6 years old, will follow the hint. We're both wired together. That's love. Domestication from a Russian fox experiment is about selecting the less aggressive, more cooperative of us. So here's the thing. This is how this happened. We got hints from the dogs that we didn't get by ourselves. We happen to survive. We still get along with dogs, and dogs still read us. So cooperation got here because of natural selection. Good story? You have to believe me, and that might not be true. But here's the deal. Love is not an emotion. If you're looking for it, if you want to find that person you love, get married and have a family. How many of you have ever been disappointed in that pursuit? Don't answer that. Yet you get what you look for. So how come we keep looking for a feeling? Nobody's given us the spec. How do you implement this? How do you do this? How do you function this way? So what is it? Here's another psychologist friend of mine. A sustained active presence while providing reliable services on 5 APIs. Okay, maybe he didn't say it quite that way. So here's the 5 APIs. Pay attention. Hearing and sensing what people say and noticing how they feel. Good stuff. But it works for problems too. That's kind of weird. It's efficient. Acceptance of others just as they are. God, we do that all the time at PyCon, trying to make sure that we have a good mix of people. Same thing with problems. Don't wish a problem would be something different. It works. Appreciation of others. God, is this terrible? Strengths, limitations, includes understanding what they're about. Well, guess what? It works for problem space too. Which is also why it's important to be able to separate what's the nature of the problem from what's the nature of our solution, because the solution's the stuff we can change out a lot So if we don't see that, we kind of fall into the love is a feeling thing. Being favorably inclined, like, yes, Brian, you really can like a language or have affection for code, and I like PyCon. I know, Brian was talking after me, so I put his name in there. And allowing others to make their own choices, including what programming languages they want to pick. So, okay, that's all the time I've got for it. But I get serious on this in Marin County, November 9th, with Dave Rico, who's written a bunch of books. He's got a day long, and on the 10th, we're going to talk in San Francisco to techies about what does this mean for actually structuring modules and solutions, and for team building, which is kind of weird and strange. So if you're in San Francisco, go for it.
Awesome, thanks.